and I will go live on Facebook. And Mark, you can start anytime.
Well, thank you. We're actually 1 minute early today.
I muted everyone, but you can unmute yourselves as well.
Welcome. This is a great pleasure today to introduce some of my favorite poets, Bruce Bond, Sharon Mesmer, Virginia Konchan, and Walt Hunter. And I'm delighted to have them at Lit Balm today. But before we commence with the feature, Cassandra and I will do a little reading of our own. And here's Cassandra. Cassandra is an award-winning writer, scholar of prose poetry, and professor of writing and literature in Melbourne, Australia. Her most recent books of prose poetry are Pre-Raphaelite, Leftovers, and Fugitive Letters. She is currently writing a book of prose poetry on the atomic bomb with funding from the Australia Council. Cassandra also co-wrote prose poetry, an introduction, and the anthology of Australian prose poetry. And she's commission editor for Westerly magazine, one of Australia's best journals, by the way. Cassandra.
Yep, I have a poem called Shrine Island, and we're just talking about Japan. So it's actually about Japan. At high tide, the Torii Gate floats in the Seto Inland Sea, its vermilion camphor and cedar posts rising from the water in a shock of neon. I ask you to take my photo while I stand on the flat rock in a velour pink miniskirt, and years later, it looks like a prayer. We walk to Kakia and I eat too many oysters, taking their salty creaminess into my cheeks. Later, Sika deer follow you to the ferry, a convoy of spotted bodies and starving Bambi eyes. Outside the village, the island is mostly wilderness. Beyond the radiation zone, glassy particles on the shore betray its proximity to Hiroshima. As misty twilight settles over Miyajima, you open the window and we make love on an unmade bed in the Hiroshima Prince Hotel. Our limbs are a blue-tinted vanishing point. And I would like to introduce the amazing Mark Vincent, who I notice has inserted some little changes here to keep everyone on their toes. So watch out, people. Mark Vincent is an Anglo-Swiss American poet, a fiction writer, a translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He has published over 20 books of poetry, including more recently Einstein Fledermaus, The Little Book of Earthly Delights, A Brief Conversation with Consciousness, There Might Be a Moon or a Dog with Gazebo Books in Australia, 39 Wonders and Other Management Issues, just released from Spite and Diable, and The Pearl Dive of Irunmani, forthcoming in early 2023 from White Pine Press. If that isn't enough, he has an album of music, ambience, and verse, Left Hand Clapping, forthcoming from Tree Torn Records. Vincent is also a prolific translator, and he is translated from, and he's got some extras in here, people, so you can't join in because you'll see that there's German, Romanian, French, and many others, Japanese, Chinese, French, Romanian, Icelandic. Yep, you know it. He's published 11 books of translations, most recently an Audible Blue, Selected Poems, 1963 to 2016 by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist. At least it's still Klaus Mertz, and you haven't changed that one on me. Just out from White Pine Press. And his own work has been translated into every language imaginable. He is currently working on a novel entitled The Age of Occasion. Vincent is editor and publisher of Mad Hat Press, publisher of New American Writing. He has lived, we all know this bit, all over the world, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but he now lives on a farm in rural western Massachusetts overlooking Herman Melville's Greylock Mountain, Melville's inspiration for Moby Dick, where there are more, drumroll, brown, marmorated stink bugs, Durbid plant hoppers, and three-legged assassin bugs than people. That was a great one to find out that they inhabit your area of the world, Mark. Will you read something for us?
Oh, for sure. This is called The Beginning. In the beginning was nothing but the word, or so the word said. And the word said there was nothing. Near the beginning, well, shortly thereafter, was this cosmos we call our home, the one where we feel the coolness of breath in the evening, or perhaps Like me, you're a sucker for fireflies. You'd think by now, after having landed on Mars, having made the first flirtations with other parts of the galaxy, that things would be coming into focus, or even better, into perspective. Yet it was not to be. As the old prophet had said, the universe thinks humanity is a joke, not an out loud guffawing joke, but a triste accumulation of chuckles concerning a habitat for a handful of species who consider their domicile the bee's knees. Share a little bread, pass around the wine, have candles burning everywhere, even in the mind, and enlist help from any cordial hand that reaches out. The challenges are vast, the pleasures seldom, and then there's our selective memories. Most of the time, you feel like you've met a ghost. Hunger is what the body needs to survive. And he went on talking about remorse and guilt and sunrises and torrential rains, about crows and their daily offering of stones to the crow god, or how the tiger magically dissolves behind a tree. The prophet lived in my own memory, not like a specter, but more like a tooth fairy who looked like a skinny gnome, one with a fishing rod, eternally angling in a little pond between mossy rocks, he in the red woolly cap. And occasionally he would glance back and mutter or grumble, and once in a while you'd catch a dictum like, "In the beginning, there was me." And now I'm absolutely delighted to introduce the illimitable Sharon Mesmer, who is a poet, fiction writer, essayist, and teacher. Her most recent poetry collection, Greetings from My Girly Leisure Place from Bloof, was voted Best of 2015 by Entropy magazine. Her other poetry collections are Annoying Diabetic Bitch, The Virgin Formica, Half Angel, Half Lunch, and Vertigo Seeks Affinities. 4 of her poems appear in postmodern American poetry. She has published also 3 fiction collections, The Empty Quarter and In Ordinary Time from Hanging Loose, and Ma Vie à Yongo from Hachette in French translation. Her essays and reviews and interviews have appeared in many journals and periodicals, including the New York Times, New York Magazine, The Cut, Paris Review, American Poetry Review, Commonweal, Brooklyn Rail, among many others. Sharon's awards include a Fulbright Specialist Grant, a Jerome Foundation Mentoring Award, and 2 New York Foundation for the Arts Fellowships. She teaches in the undergraduate and graduate programs of NYU and the New School. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you. I'm actually on strike from the New School right now. The part-time faculty's on strike, and I was actually on the picket line yesterday, so that was fun. I'm so happy to be reading here with all of you, and thank you, Mark, and thank you, Cassandra. I guess I'm going to read. I didn't know I was going first, so I'm trying to set up my little timer here. Okay, I'm good. I'm going to read 5 poems from a manuscript that I just finished called Even Living Makes Me Die. And it is dedicated to 25 underknown women poets of the Americas from Canada to Chile. And some of them are not underknown to us, but in terms of their legend and their infamy, they are sort of underknown. And they're poets that I really love. And I researched each one of them and sat with their work for about 3 weeks, sometimes even longer, until I kind of felt like I could access their themes and their lives. And it really was an interesting experience to kind of immerse myself in their lives and their works. So I'm going to read 5 poems from that manuscript, one of which is a prose poem. And the first one is called To Sharon Mesmer, after Julia de Burgos, Puerto Rico, 1917 to 1953. This poem was not written by you, Sharon Mesmer, white woman whose name means complainer of insomnia. This poem was written by me, Julia de Burgos, whose name means my eyes are filled with the graves of stars, and that's why I can fly. Who am I? Don't you know me? Well, when God asked me who I wanted to be, and I said, someone who loves peacefully, God wrote down amnesiac and pushed me out of baby heaven like a blank pushes a blank out of a blank. You fill in the blank, Sharon Mesmer. I've already done all the work. What, you're still wondering how I got inside? Still wondering why only one of us can fly? Well, keep in mind that when you write a line like, no one loved me, but I had wings, we both know you're trying to sound like Mary Oliver. I know because I never tried to write myself into a position involving career advancement or even happiness. I am no mere witness to inertia. I know that heaven kills and hell transforms a witness to inertia into an embodied form of joy for all eternity. At the same time, I'm no angel. I'm not even a filthy pigeon. What am I then? I am the scaled fish writhing, still alive in your hands, my wild eyes pleading with you to blank. You know what to do. Start with feeling the constrictions of your sticky wings. And this is called Interlocutor, and it's after Marcia Nardi, 1900 to 1990. And you may not recognize her name, but you might recognize the name Cress, which William Carlos Williams used for several sections of Patterson. And he based her character and those lines on letters that they exchanged. So Interlocutor after Marcia Nardi. Oh, and by the way, the lines from this poem are lines from her letters and I'm acknowledging that they're from her letters. He told me some lives are fated to perish. He said I was one of those lives. He said I spoke of nothing save my problems, but I know what I'm about. I know the stem that bears no blossom must be for some the blossom, the host not of something never to be born, but of something already whole, even though unborn. It is fitting then this sunless run of 50 years, natural as chaos, as waste, as the stationary mayhem of losing a baby twice. But one loses nothing. One is, in fact, free of dull similitudes and useless feminine gestures. One retains the right to not be beautiful, to be positively ugly and still have value, a dark arcade of the Middle Age. All these distressed concerns of mine, all this mischancing of plans, just a funny carnival wonder trail. He fused my words with his and became famous, but not through carelessness or lack of gratitude, rather a gnosis of not knowing, a gift. And this is the prose poem. It's called The Poet's Decalogue after Gabriela Mistral, Chile, 1889 to 1957. 1, be always conscious of your wings. Darkness is overtaking, churning, and even tension is tired. In the house of keeping still, all is hollow-eyed and groaning. 2, shiver and tingle outside the automobile. Grandma is on life support. The nuns and nurses found her and called you a wanderer. They know nothing of your wings, or do they? 3, disrobe. The holiest were often required to be naked. Under the dome of the winged serpent, all was stillness. In those days, the sun door stood open and all of creation flew through it in radiant rounds of joy. 4, is your chimney warm? Is the air in it warm and the air in your room? Is your hearth redolent with the scent of flesh? If so, fan the flames to produce a cooling jewel. Use this jewel to scry only the most necessary knowing. 5, make a pilgrimage to the mountain of butterflies. Love descends on those defenseless. 6, the ocean-born virgin is named Fishy Smell, but her real name is Bird. Find her in the neck of time. Her vagina is enough. You don't need the legs. Remember that initiation takes a lifetime and transpires purely by accident. Soon a triangle of morning light will come pouring through the porch. 7, take the mantle of an earth-colored insect and make a wand of twigs and leaves. Use it to replicate the cunning beauty of certain corpses. In the end, your face should resemble a luminous apricot-colored cloud. 8, soon you'll stall. Your coverts will beat to no advantage. You may choose to sacrifice your happiness to restore what was lost, but the sacrifice itself is the privilege. How long will it take you to forget this? 9, everything that torments and suffocates, everything that imparts sorrow and despair is the moving water that turns the wheel, that transforms air into tree, into prayer, into air. Breathe deep. Make scribble pictures of the stain on your ceiling and try to sell them. Very few will buy. 10, now recall the glory of your wings. And the last two, Privates of the Popular Apocalypse after Laurie Jackson, U.S. 1962 to 1990. And Laurie was someone I knew from the Chicago poetry scene when I lived there. I didn't die young enough, but I am coiffed and wired on broken linoleum, your finger seating me like dragon teeth, my clavicle bruised in freight yard dusk, a parenthesis of grease on the ceiling of the Y. So what if it's true? The clavicle is the body's only long horizontal bone. And the stuff a young girl does to make a man a hero cuts a low, keening moan amid the moon and ablutions. But hey, weren't we discussing linoleum, the ceiling of the Y, bald, bright July? And would it hurt to fall asleep as the coach house smolders, my face all twisted, but recognizably me? And then the last one is Given to Fire after Elise Cohen, U.S. 1933 to 19, U.S. 1933 to 1962. Unfortunately, most people know Elise Cohen as Allen Ginsberg's last straight girlfriend. But she wrote absolutely beautiful poems, and a lot of them were destroyed by her parents after she died. She died jumping out of a window, a closed window. And when Allen was my teacher in the Brooklyn College MFA program, he always said to me, it's too bad that you can't read some of her poems because she was a very fine poet. And then this collection was brought out a few years ago, and I think people then did see that she was a very good poet. So this is for her. Given to Fire. Not from nowhere, not the consort of a river. What I remembered best were accidents of quiet brightness, Allen's arms around me. And if he said I was standing in the middle of the room at dawn, all in black, high on mescaline, more beautiful than the poem, then I was. And now I am passing back into the rocks, into the God of rocks. Betty said it was birds who first fitted witches with wings, while fir trees of great antiquity sang lays they'd learned from their mother, air. I say it was too easy to love the leggy one who made me run up and down the Statue of Liberty until I learned to fly, past the frosted skylight air shaft, through the closed window, like an arrow cast, without a bow, without an owner, but borne on longing, a cool stream of air. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
What a cool stream of air. And here is Bruce Bond, the author of more than 30 books, including more recently Plurality and the Poetics of Self from Palgrave, Words Written Against the Walls of the City, Scar, Behemoth, and The Calling, and Patmos, which won the Juniper Prize in 2021. Bruce's work has appeared in many journals and anthologies, including 7 editions of Best American Poetry. He is presently a Regents Emeritus Professor of English at the University of North Texas. Welcome, Bruce.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I've had a couple of books come out since that list. I want to read from one of them, which is entitled Liberation of Dissonance. This book was many years in the making. It came out from Schaffner Press. It won their prize. I love this press in part because of its connection to H.D. It's one of my favorite poets. I'm going to read 2 poems from this, and then probably one from Behemoth and 1 or 2 others. So this is called Lorca. You hear it best where the key turns minor and enters a field you did not know was there, but it was always there, you think, this star, day or night, this jewel in the mine, always a wilderness that pulls from earth its slow, dark architectural progress. A boat slips beneath the harbor bridge, a letter that says, by the time you get this, I will be gone. And yet you read there some tender argument, know that I am thinking of you, or please be not afraid. The mere mention of fear sounds its own danger alone in the harbor flagged in mist, wherever music goes farthest, deepest. You hear the speaker trapped inside it, longing to be clear. And it is that failure that is clearest, the hesitant strength, hope, and its refusals that phrase the matter. It is the need to be there among the lost that carves the marble of all things here. Bells. Wind, with barely a word in its path, makes no sound. And then the banner lifts and flutters, the one hand claps. Bronze comes invisibly to life, and the startled temple mourns the missing hand. Who here is not a child of bells? They blow to song the abstracts of men through the open garret. Who is it now, I wonder, and the bells turn back to stone? Today, I watched a movie of the killing. I thought perhaps it would make me wise, responsive, or in excited horror prone to see suspicion blown into a monster. I am just one hand after all. A man is there, I do know this, bones of light, flesh of shadow. And as the gun goes off, the wind of the known trajectory blows an abstract of men through the open lesion. Who here is not a child? Fire moves through broken windows and the figures in a riot, and the names get taken down or lost. Night burns, embers graze the eye, but the movie does not change. Characters are cast in bronze this time, committed, bound to mistakes they made or suffered or deepened by neglect. Those who walk the tear gas go in unseen. Some are pulled aside, questioned, searched, and never found. Others hang in the heart of the bayou like bells, and no one hears. Some walk the pathless walk of bronze in the tower, forward and back, the stride of the breath and the broom and the hasp of the flag beaten into wind and cinders. However singular the bullet and path of light, the door in the body swings both ways, in and farther in. The banner claps the air, and somewhere men prepare the body for the viewing. Flowers release their ghost overhead. You hear the silence on which a music lies. It is template hard, cold, steady as the embalmer's table. Say the window is the one hand, her open bed the other. The bronze that strikes her from her nightmare is the bell. I have felt my own music overfill the vessel of the killer. Whatever the misconception, it is looking for another, a word to strike, a mirror, a wall, and now the movie has come down offline. The children are sequestered. The gunmetal river goes cold. Wind, with barely a word in its path, fills and empties the needles of the valley. Where there is a breath, there is an obstacle in its path. America touches no one in particular, and so a little of all. It cracks as men in grief and office do. Every bell is two bells, one silent, the other made of words that so miss the world. They whisper, look, they break us open, and then in tired voices break, so full of promise, they cannot find us. Okay. I'm going to read a short poem from Behemoth. This one's called Bronze. There's more bells in this, I realize now. This is quite a segue. Bronze. Tower bells beat the door of the sky, and so call to those who hear the toll of marriage or mourning or time passing before the bronze goes still. Today, I hear all those calls at once, leaning from the chamber, a rapture that bears, I know, a given message, though I like to think the music has its own. So too, its own cloud swept through the parapet, where the temple scaffolds rise and fall over the face and stones of a great design, the one I never see. I, a mongrel, married a Jew. My table crowned in candles whose light and honey smokes the air, and they are not mine. These dispensations echoed at the altar, not mine, the music of my home, though it marries me to the silence after. Call me a follower, then, a mute observer, a bit of stone against the larger burden. I married a battered child, the girl and her broken by a stranger again and again, like a wave inside a shell. Whenever I hear bells, I think of this, unable to say what needs to be said, or hear the broken silence when it speaks. Nights, I am awakened by her breathing, and still I dream. Still, her heart beats its bronze against a sky I cannot enter. And then she moans. I shake her gently. It's okay, I answer. That's all it takes, a stage whisper. And she mumbles, thank you, love you, without opening her eyes. I think I'm just going to read one more. This is the title poem from my new and selected that came out a little bit ago. It's called Blackout Starlight. I'm from LA, and this is dedicated to the homeless of LA who are repeatedly displaced. It's an impossible situation for them. They cannot exist without breaking the law, and basically that's the gist of it. Blackout Starlight. At the base of a leg of smoke on which the heaven of Los Angeles stands. A man is burning the unidentified remains of a chair in a can, and his shadow grows tall against the warehouse wall behind his eyes. Another man joins him, and in the distance you hear a siren, a dog, and then another, and the whispered sea of the interstate coming ashore. In other words, a kinship of silhouettes and voices falls over the talk and inner lives of those who otherwise might appear left out of the larger conversation. I read once fire came to the center of our social circle for this. Before it cooked our meats, it held our fascination. It held us. And then the howling. And a man shares a hit of smoke with a man swept with the others from the center of town. The new money is buying up the old, and the rents that sweep beds from these apartments, and the mission is full, and the flames keep breaking some local ordinance to pieces like a chair. Just today, the one man sat through a sermon in a parking lot because it came with coffee and a roll and a city of angels that had no suffering, only strangers to their experience on earth. It felt like a story told over the fire, the stars taking aim among the copters with their needles of light. Something in the sermon's voice rose with a clarity foreign to smoke. It helps some. The coffee is hot and the new money keeps burning a hole in the pockets of Los Angeles, where land is cheap and people move along a step ahead of the law and the seasons. Welcome to paradise, says the postcard of a beach in the fire. And as it crumples, nothing changes, nothing moves an address like that, where the streets are swept each morning by machine. There is a better world, surely, and the darkness of the warehouse wall ebbs a little as the ashes rise. Whatever the medication, it is always wearing off. Whatever the angel dust that falls from the construction power is always hungry, thin, gone the way of white powders in the high rise, and the air above the earth movers coming to rest. Any pretense here of the whole picture gives way to the perspective of a man or two beside the empty warehouse. Words and silences get exchanged like cash buying cash, and the larger conversation is less a conversation than the ghost of elsewhere thumping in a black limousine, the windows, the mirror of our own exclusion. One's own hand could be shaking for some unspoken reason. One man could hear the siren spread dog to dog and laugh with another. And what the hell? Time to put the whole enchilada in. The chair and the missing man it held, the leg with its claw, the arm curved like a broken overpass. Time for the part that never was a chair. It is now. Fire makes it so, and so mails the postcard back to where it came from, to St. Peter at the electric gate, beyond the local ordinance that is the space around a heaven that keeps it safe. Put it in, the angel and the machine and the ball that drops through the wall of the tenement, the bright flock that scatters like a window. Put them all in the way a dog puts it all in the cry we call his, though something the size of the whole picture is happening to him. Echo untouched by echo, throat by throat, something of the whole heart cut out of hiding, the deep red part hurled into the dark like meat to the wall, and the shadows roar. Hey.
Hurled into the dark like meat to a wall. Amazing. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
What are we seeing from you next? You're so prolific.
Oh, well, of course, there's the Mad Hat book, which I was going to read from, but I only had so much time. So Choreomania should be out in a couple weeks, I guess. You tell me.
Well, it's ready. It's ready. Just tell me when to press the button.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think that's what we arranged December would be a good release month for that book.
No,
That's
no
an
problem.
old book, but yeah, I still feel very connected to it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Choreomania coming out from Bruce Bond, Mad Hat Press in December.
Do people know what choreomania means? It's basically dance fever. Choreo as in choreograph, or even chorus, because originally Greek choruses moved about. So it means dance, choreomania. And it's a phenomenon associated with the Black Plague, which I mean, extended over an extraordinary period of time. But these outbreaks of collective dancing were sometimes so intense and infectious that people dropped from exhaustion. Actually, an entire bridge was collapsed via choreomania. It's just such a freaky phenomenon where people would spontaneously join in this mass activity, and sometimes it went on for weeks.
Sounds something like a football match between Liverpool and Chelsea or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, some of the same instincts, I'm sure.
Definitely. We are delighted now to introduce Virginia Konchan, who is the author of 4 poetry collections: Bel Canto from Carnegie Mellon, Hallelujah Time from Vehicle, Any God Will Do, and The End of Spectacle from Carnegie Mellon, and a collection of short stories, Anatomical Gift from Noctuary Press in 2017, and 4 chapbooks. She is the co-editor of the craft anthology Marbles on the Floor, How to Assemble a Book of Poems, University of Akron. She holds degrees from Beloit, Cleveland, and University of Illinois in Chicago. Her poems have appeared in The New Yorker, The New Republic, The Atlantic, American Poetry Review, The Yale Review, Best New Poets, The Walrus, and The Believer. Her essays in Kenyon Review, Boston Review, Jacket 2, and Guernica. Her translations in Brooklyn Rail and Circumference. And her fiction in Story Quarterly, Joyland, and Memorias. Virginia's work has been anthologized in several collections, and her honors include grants and fellowships from the National Endowment of the Humanities, Vermont Studio Center, Oxbow, the Banff Center, the Scuola Internazionale di Grafica, co-founder of Matter. Virginia also works as a freelance manuscript editor and teaches creative writing at the Cleveland Institute of Art. Welcome, Virginia.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you, Cassandra. And it's an honor to read with you, Sharon, Bruce, and Walt. I'm going to be reading from Bel Canto, which actually the publication date is in a few days, on the 22nd of November. It's a collection inspired by the forms and the themes of lyric opera. And I'll begin, so to speak, at the end with a poem called Addendum. We were born into an amazing experiment. The music of the anthem has no boundary, no sworn allegiance, no nation save the one we lower into its dying body. The opposite of a gun is wherever you point it. They researched my offenses in the penal code. Hopeless romantic, forget not is in flower, and this is the closest you'll get to embrace. How strange this life is mine, not another. Husband me. I have vocal cords enough for screaming, enough for veritable mine. This is the scene where I take your hand in my hand and I tell you we are burning. This is the part where, after the bar fight, the food fight, the gladiator spectacle, we gaze together at the blue screen of pure mathematical abstraction. After reconciliation, consensus. After appeasement, the coup. Memory, stay faithful to this moment. It will never return. Life is all afterlife, all fresco painted by a meticulous hand. Let me touch your rough skin before its transmogrification. Let me be the first to greet you when you sit at the right hand of our God. And the next one I'll read is Epistle. There is no sufficiency in exile. I'm accustomed to eventless days. Funny thoughts slide into my head alone on the interstate. I thought you were dead, for example. Be kind to the body, stranger that it is. Matter at odds with materialism, I'm done perishing beneath weeping willows. I need a salt lick, a fiefdom, a mylar balloon. Oh, to be nude and happy. Oh, to be Russian and asleep. Carve me a wooden idol already. Break my orbital, I mean occipital bone. How to want what I can't have all the time. I'm tired of absence and also of sameness. The soul gets into the habit of its dreams. But there is one kiss that never ends. It lights up around your mouth. Plausible God, God of rapture. I am the ruthless brute in the stable, a singularity more idiot than savant, amorously wrecking my own shadow. You are a shard of pulverized crystal, the last known trace of Victoriana, mercuric atom resigned to desire. What human could stay so quiet? One who is secretly on fire. And I don't have many preparatory comments tonight, I guess. I just gonna go read a few more poems, but so grateful for all of your presences here. Theodicy. Sometimes naked, I don't feel naked. Sometimes I feel naked when clothed. A thing breaks and we're on fire with rage. Was it supposed to enjoy eternity like us? Before Trojans were mascots or condoms, they were warriors. Before non sequiturs were digressions, they were troubadour songs. The universe is an echo chamber of discordant matter. Heaven is a fraudulent quorum of marooned demigods. I am detached from personal narrative, history, identity. Whip out a dictionary and tell me what that means. On the day the stars conspire against me, I will conquer and overcome my ugliness. Today, I saw the sunrise into a bank of clouds. I want to be strong, and I want not to be strong. I left the windows open. Is it raining now? The shadow is a mouth that baptizes. The shadow is a lover who won't call. You die and die and die, then you live. I think of the small white moths circumscribing the garden. Because they are beautiful, because they barely exist at all. And I'll just read a couple more. This one's forthcoming in the Bennington Review soon, I think. It's called Carousel. I should have studied metallurgy in the carceral attention economy. No one has the other currency. The price is wrong until paid. I want to be indissociable, like a corporation with limited liability, but also like Trinitarian theology. The mysterious third person was, I feel, not adequately explained. Disambiguation is overrated, and I'm done asking whether if what I've done to myself and what others have done to me are the same question. Abstraction, representation, wanted, dead or resurrected. Surely you've seen posters around town, chère lecture. I look into the open mouth of the carousel's lacquered horse, hypnotically sway. What is the secret word, or is it a command? Arise, Lazarus, andale. If death is the material, I can't grasp the material. To loop circus music, an orchestrated concerto, I spur my horse anyway. And I'll close with the title poem of the book, Bel Canto. Inside me is a black-eyed animal struggling to get out, be free. Inside me is a failed attempt at explanation, a frozen pizza, a botched murder, and a consumptive, fallen woman heroine. It's not love, until someone is willing to die for you or quotes you out of context. Agony, Saint Joan, or another valorous witch going up in flames. My transpersonal gender falls asleep and dreams it is invulnerable. My metamorphic body falls asleep and dreams it is inevitable, this slow slog towards slaughter, tragic fate of a ruminating cow. Hand me my stilettos. Hand me my Ativan, my floor-length evening gown, my fainting couch, my spouse. Today is an envelope of money I will no doubt squander. Hand me my opera glasses. I want to shatter a champagne flute with my resonant frequency. I want to discomfit, then bring down the house. Thank you.
And the house is officially brought down, Virginia. Thank you so much. Next we hear from Walt. Walt, who is the author of Forms of a World, Contemporary Poetry, and the Making of Globalization. He's also the translator with Lindsay Turner of Frederick Nerriat's Atopia's Manifesto for a Radical Existentialism. Walt is a recipient of grants from the Robert B. Silvers Foundation, the South Carolina Arts Commission, and the National Endowment for the Humanities. He's former James Merrill House writer in residence. His poems have appeared in the Atlantic, Boston Review, Hopkins Review, Oversound, Literary Imagination, and many others. Originally from Philadelphia, he holds an AB from Harvard College and a PhD from UVA. He's associate professor of English at Case Western Reserve University and contributing editor for The Atlantic. His poetry collection, Some Flowers, was just released from Mad Hat Press.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Cassandra, Virginia, Bruce, Sharon. It's an honor to be here with you. Profane landscape. Sky above the tree line. It's iridescent, fuzzy porcelain, and it hurts to look. Scratches on the window. Certified sourcing. Arts trace the arc of the maple as a habit of thought. Is there an opening for thought? Is this a staircase routine? The total skylessness, the time you spent here. Is this a floodplain of light? What sense or sound withholds spinning gold into straw? Many of these poems are about leaving South Carolina, which I finally did. Clematis. We were waiting in the spring for our bodies to return. We were waiting in the fall and waiting in the winter for the dead to see our shadows. The forsythia exploded. Was it dew or was it weeping? There was hell smeared on our faces in the morning. As we mixed the silt with blood, you could wash it off with anger. It was there again that evening. We collided with the future. Was it spring or all desertion? The risk, the total starlessness, the branches and the broken thorns. The dead arrived to ask us, and I went outside without you. When the winter came, I lost you. When the spring came through the hurrying doves, was this our punishment? Look here, come here. The clematis is fragrant. See it climb the trellis where the soul was indivisible. The surface of the river fills with light. The spring already fading. Are they questions? Are they prayers? It's debating on whether I should read something about leaving Denver too, another place I've tried to leave for a while and finally wound up in Cleveland. I think I'll read a couple more about South Carolina and then one new one about arriving in Cleveland. My life has been a series of moving from place to place recently, so the poems are representing that in some sense. A different ending. 14 years in the Southeast, 15. The winter first is dull, then beautiful, then sad. My days hang on and last while the heat turns ash to flower, flower back to ash. I threw myself against my life until it cracked. We changed houses. The news got worse. We changed and changed houses. The weather ended altogether. Finally, we lived on a hill. The neighbors shocked the dog when they appeared. One built a fence around the backyard. All of us at loose ends, trying to protect each other. I watched you watch me dressing in the morning, but by that time I was living alone and evening stared me down. Nothing learned, I sing the same songs and get older. The Commons is deserted. Municipal Worcester glooms at the height where miracles should be. It suddenly seems like there was never anyone here. Nauseous, walking under the bridge to Green Island, I noticed the trees, the bars, the trees turning red, the rust and urine stain of sky departing earth, and feel my body heavy in the same atmosphere. The bonds of heaven, what good is all experience when the soul slips out at night and won't return? At the bookstore, thumbing through Sepharis, what I must guard against is that my life is measured. But I wanted to learn by rote the things that make you happy and leave in the morning in the thick summer air. That one was actually about Massachusetts. I have no idea why I said it was about South Carolina. This is the third part of that, of this poem, a different ending. 3. Years of doing nothing right, years of watching the sky flick off and on, now with the textured clouds, now with birds, now with all birds gone. Walking up the hill to Green Hill Park, I turned to see the dense theology of Western Mass cascade at rush hour down to Marlborough. Everything I write seems misperceived. My failure was to find myself less interesting than anyone else. The punishment will be to see things finally correctly, but too late. The wind starts up again when the day ends. I'm lying alone in the hotel bed at the edge of winter, the southern season you found possible to love. I'll just read two brief ones more. This one is a poem about Romeo and Juliet. It's called The Early and the Later Place. Juliet, the dancer, wakes up in a crypt, but it was all a crypt. And she remembers stillness, pulling the satin sheets off the bed at the feet of her father, dressed in the habit of the questioners. Later, when we all wake up and recognize each other, after questions, after willfully inflicting pain, you see she doesn't wake up too. The stage light leaps from island, island, island. It was after watching the Prokofiev version of that, I was really struck by the ending. Okay, and this one's another sad poem, but it's about arriving in Cleveland. And that's where I live now, and I love it. It's snowing. It's 7 feet of snow a little east of here in Buffalo. We're gonna get a few inches tonight, I think. It's just called Poem. I think it'll be out in the Atlantics pretty soon, maybe in a while, but next few months for sure. Poem. And again, thank you so much, Mark, for all of your support, especially, and Virginia and I are on a mini book tour together, it seems. So please come see us in Cleveland. In staggered order, we departed singly from the places we had loved through Indiana, Illinois, Ohio. In the late June evening, highway driving all the way back to our childhood fields in Pennsylvania and Virginia, where everyone else was gone. There are certain places you can only leave the way you lose a person in a dream and feel the thought like a burnt patch in your mind. In the eastern summers, the rain comes quickly after the wind, and it says you will lose all your friends. You will lose each of them at a given moment. Watch and be provided with this siding and this bread and music in their place, which you can touch and eat and hear and go on living. I only realized how far east I'd come when the day took so long warming up. It was already near the end. Now it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, October. It took all this time to find out what my pleasure was and take it. I found I had no reason anymore to want it. It was too late when I walked out onto the stone patio, moss and stone, and as quietly as the cat hugged the shaded wall, the heat grew stronger. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Thank you, Walt. And the heat lives on. As John Wessex says, there's plenty of romance here. Thank you so much for this wonderful feature with Sharon, Bruce, Virginia, and Walt. And also let me tell you guys, a good friend of ours, the poet Dean Kostos, just passed away. Tragically, from what we understand, he had a heart attack. Anyway, I think he was in his early 60s, no one knows really for sure, but because he was very guarded about his age. But yeah, anyway, Sharon knew Dean, and we'll be doing a special memorial show for Dean on December 17th. So please join us for that. There'll be more than 30 poets reading his work. And so now I'm going to hand over the mic to Cassandra to see what we have for our open mic situation tonight.
Oh, it's always good, but it's extra good today after a lineup of poets like that. It has to be magnificent. It's got no choice but to be. And we're starting with Mike Folds, because we know he's always fantastic. He has a book that's just come out. I'm hoping he's going to flog it for us so that we can all buy it. Mike. Are you there? Hang on. You're still on mute. I'll ask you to unmute, but you can. You got to unmute yourself. You're still on mute. Click that button. Yay!
Oh, all right.
That's way
I was
better.
going to say, if I have to flog my book, I have to find it.
Yeah, it's got a gorgeous
Oh.
cover. Don't you just have it on hand?
Well, I don't know which hand. Hang on. Ah, there it is. Under paper. What else? This is the book. I don't know if you can all see that. It's Christopher Pans's
Gorgeous.
cover, and it's called Original Sin. And it's available from Cervena Barba Press, or directly through me on Smashwords and PayPal and other places like that. I'm going to read a poem called The Cooling of Wonder at the request of hers truly.
Hooray! It's one of my
Yes.
favorites.
Thank you very much, Cassandra. I'm not saying what I see today is not as great as what I saw yesterday, but predictions and transitions have shaved corners from wonder of initial experience, whether falling waters of Niagara, a shoreline walk, a shimmering moon on a darkened sea, or sex in the wild at summer camp. I'm not saying what I see today is not as lonely as a precocious child who must wait to discover herself while looking ahead for the familiar rhythms of another. I'm not saying where any of this goes. The sun, the sky, a November moon. The wonder they bring will always be, just not tomorrow for you or me. Thank you very
Absolutely
much.
love it. So love that poem.
Appreciate
A
it.
shimmering moon on a darkened sea, or sex in the wild at summer camp. I think
That's
everyone
what
knew
you
I
like,
took the sex
okay.
line out. Of course. That's my favorite bit. I
Don't
love
we
it.
all?
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
and yeah, put the details of your book in the chat so that people
Okay,
can find it, because
Thank you.
it's a goodie.
I will do that.
Next, we have Philip, who also has a book out. He has a book out with Mad Hat, and it's a wonderful book. And he has a real gift for evoking a sense of place and incredible imagery. So, Philip, you're up.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, perfectly.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yep.
This poem is entitled Ode to the God of Dogs, and it's after Hayden Carruth. 6 in the morning, the sun uncertain of its rise, this hound lying by my chair, her lifting at my every shift. I yearn to say the words ontological and existential, the latter for the way it fills the mouth with sibilant grit, the former for the O's it spins on my tongue. Something essential is up and about, and praise, that infrequent guest, wraps her warm paw on the back porch door, wags her way into the light. Whether you exist is a question I choose not to ask today, nor will I button my well-worn sweater of doubt. These winter days I sense you in the barren fields, in the unnameable gray of the coonhound's flank, the beagle's unnerving bay, the bloodhound's determined lunge at the end of the sheriff's leash. The grand chorus of howls at dawn fades like mercy and settles the house. O God of the hound, the Brittany, and the chocolate lab, God of the pointer, the setter, and breeds less enamored of death, if others live in your pack, Implore them to lean from their jealous table and look down on one man, aiming not for a place in their pantheon, but content in his woods by a herald stove, reddening in the heat from his last block of beach, a blue tick's chin on his boot. Thank you.
I mean, that is so perfect. I love your poem. The sun uncertain of its rise, the sibilant grit, and Mark and I both loved the buttoning of the well-worn sweater of doubt. But as a dog person as well, it just had everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have John Wessick, who also has a book out. What is it with this time of year and everyone having a fantastic book out?
I don't know.
The shaman himself. The shaman is here.
Yes, but this is not in the shaman, so it's another.
Okay.
It's a new poem.
The new
When I
one.
dream of espresso bars, there is a thing in me that dreams of streets, a cultured town with plays and trendy bars, a little way from geese and shitting bears, a little way from mud and gnats and sleet. I would eat steak, I thought, and fries to spare, with wine and cake for company, to build some laughs of wild parody. When I walk upon the streets, among food trucks and taco stands, equally the coffee shop, its scones and Nanaimo bars give off such hints of gladness. Were it not for my expanding waist, I would eat them daily. Beside me, the coffee grinder whirs, an espresso machine hisses, "Stay a while," as light smiles from its chrome facade. The city calls again with bookstores and ballet, its subway stops and traffic lights, panhandler outside the sushi bar, and green-haired kids smoking weed by the door.
I think you're just describing Melbourne. We're all coffee snobs here. We've got the best espresso bars. I'm not sure about shitting bears, but there might be one if you kind of walk further enough out of the city. I love your style. You know that, John. You have just such a memorable way of putting things together that never leave my head from
Could be koala bears, actually.
yeah, well, except they're not bears, but we'll go with that. We'll go with that for sure.
Well, they call them koala bears.
No, they don't. Australians don't call them koala bears. They're just koalas.
Oh,
Yep. It's all right. It's all right. You've got a real live Australian here to teach you the ways
I
of
think you
the
have to
animal.
go up to like China or Indonesia to get the closest bears, don't you? Like the sun bears and the moon bears, probably. Yeah.
I think so.
all right, wombat.
All right, come on. We got Cindy next. We can't rain on her parade. Cindy's always fantastic. She's already enlivened us in the chat the whole way through the show with her amazing wit and comments. So, Cindy, what have you got? Are you alliterative for us this week?
This week, I think I'm going to plug finally my book because.
All right, is it out? Is it out?
Because Cassandra wrote one of the beautiful blurbs on it, and because it's set to drop in about a week or two. So.
Exciting.
It's called Telling You Everything. And since we're talking about bears, and since we just held the midterm election, I think I'll read a poem called The Senators, or Loaded for Bear. The senators are trampling through this poem like legislative deer caught in the rose bushes. Some are wearing Republican red coats, others blue ties in the shape of Vermont. They have flag pins over their lapels, but they pledge allegiance to the Bears. Their national anthem is Black Bear. The state of their union is Brown Bear. Their vote on climate change is Polar Bear. Their stance on guns is silence. Instead, they cast unanimous ayes in favor of winter. The senators waddle single file like a row of German ducklings, orderly but defeated. They sit in sandboxes of mud with bloody paws and pockets full of dirty money. When recess is called, they pack up their soapboxes and bullhorns and retreat to various golf courses or corrupt caves. Thank you.
Loved it. Loved your legislative dear. I love their stance on guns as silence. That's such a powerful moment in that poem. Thank you, Cindy. Another person who has a book out. So our first 3 people, Bob, have a book out. No pressure. Have you got one coming out before Christmas?
No, I don't.
Oh no, it's gonna have to be a New Year book. It's gonna have to be Bob from his kitchen with a New Year book. We always end with Bob because he always has something really special for us. I love ending open mic with Bob. He could have information, he could have chicken, he could have goulash. We don't know what he's gonna have. Have you checked the ovens off this week? Because we did get a nice little check of making sure you weren't going to burn down your house before you read. Looks like you're ready to.
It's off. It's
That's
off.
good. That's good. Well, please give us your amazing final word for the open.
Okay, this is actually new. It was written about a week ago. Language. Wants there to be, even though there cannot. The window too large to hold it inside. The word spoken, the same word that will allow the mountain or the broken river.
Wow. Love it. The broken river. What a way to end in Bob's kitchen. That's just who he is and what he does. Mark, back to you.
Very
Thank you.
tang, Bob. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, we have a tang drink here. You stir it into water and it's tangy on your tongue.
Yeah, something like that. Or it could have to do with the ancient Chinese poets.
Ah, I hear you play on words there. I hear it.
Didn't we used to, in the UK, it used to be called Tango, right? That orange drink.
Just called tang in Australia.
It was Tango. And then
Well,
they
the koala bears have the tango. The koalas have
yeah,
the tang.
it was 2 koala bears tangoing. That was the ad.
There's a John Westick poem right there.
Here we go. Recently, as a lot of you know, I live out in the country on a farm of 115 acres, and I'm very grateful for that piece. I have been a city dweller most of my life, really. I've lived in New York City, I've lived in London, in Shanghai, in Paris, in Tokyo for a brief spell, and one of the really grungiest cities was, of course, New Delhi. But anyway, I'm very glad to be out of the city. But this poem is called Back in the City, because I recently had to go back again. No longer exposed to the moon's changing cycles, everything is illuminated in camphor and phosphor, in sulfur and carbon dioxide, radioactive waves of invisible power raining down. Absence is a kind of emergence. Sea cucumbers line the curbs, searching for trace elements of brine. Ducks peck their way down the roads, and especially on a Friday night when garters are exposed. The old pissoir reeks of childhood memory, rank but comforting, like a blue cheese growing old. Thank you, everybody, for a wonderful reading. And we'll see you soon. Don't forget to join us for Dean Costas' memorial, yeah? Love you guys, love poetry, and love. Have a good one.
Love and tango in koala bears, everyone. Bye.
Oh, don't forget the koala bears.